The ongoing conflict in Ukraine, triggered by Russia's full-scale invasion on the 24th of February 2022, has evolved into one of the most brutal and costly wars of the 21st century. The staggering scale of Russian losses is a stark testimony to the relentless and grinding nature, the meat grinder, of this conflict that Putin started. And recent figures today and figures in October, reveal that Russia has suffered approximately 770,420 casualties, a number that includes those killed, wounded, missing, or captured, with over 2,200 casualties reported in the last 24 hours. The human and material cost of this war continues to escalate at a horrifying rate. A UK Under-Secretary of Defence, Luke Pollard, recently warned that Russian casualties could exceed 1 million by mid-2025 if this war continues, and this chilling forecast reflects the meat grinder tactics employed by the Kremlin. Waves of poorly trained conscripts and prisoners sent into battle with little regard for survival, achieving only marginal territorial gains on the assumption that Russia has more people than Ukraine. This is the same sort of assumption that actually led to success in the Gallipoli campaign by Kemal Mustafa Ataturk. And independent investigations by BBC Russia and MediaZone have confirmed 82,050 deaths, but this is likely to be a conservative estimate, and that was back in October. DNA requests from 48,000 Russian families searching for missing soldiers underscore the grim reality thousands are simply unaccounted for. And Russia's material losses are equally catastrophic. To date, over 9,500 tanks, 19,800 armoured vehicles, 21,200 artillery systems, and even a submarine have all been lost. The financial cost exceeds $3 billion in November alone, a monthly expenditure that Russia's economy can ill afford to sustain. And these losses highlight the limitations of Russia's logistical and operational capacity. Despite its substantial military reserves, Russia now relies heavily on unconventional recruitment, including the mobilization of prisoners and the controversial involvement of 10,000 to 12,000 North Korean soldiers, some of whom are recorded to have fled. Russia's incremental gains in eastern Ukraine, particularly in regions like Kursk and Donetsk, have come at an exorbitant price, capturing or reclaiming 2,350 square kilometers of territory over the past year, less than 1% of Ukraine's landmass, has cost tens of thousands of lives. And this lopsided strategy risks or raises critical questions about the Kremlin's objectives and its willingness to expend human lives for symbolic victories to salvage Putin's reputation. President Zelensky has provided rare insights into Ukraine's own losses, revealing 43,000 dead and 370,000 wounded. And while these figures are harrowing, the disparity underscores Russia's reliance on attritional warfare. Western defense analysts agree that Russia's casualty rate dwarfs Ukraine's because of its frontal assaults and disregard for troop welfare. The human cost extends beyond statistics. Thousands of grieving families, a collapsing recruitment pool, and growing domestic dissent threaten to erode Russia's stability as a society, as a state. And meanwhile, the war has strained Russia's international partnerships, forcing reliance on pariah states like North Korea and Iran for resources and manpower. In contrast, Ukraine, bolstered by Western support, continues to fight with strategic precision, targeting Russia's logistical hubs and reinforcing its defensive lines. This isn't about a proxy war. This is about states realizing that something is right and something is wrong. And the comment section, which seems to think that this is all about teams, is completely gaga. This is about morality. This is about a country that is prepared to sacrifice everybody for reputation. I don't care. That's the Kremlin's approach. Versus the approach of a country that has been overrun, attacked, assaulted by a neighbour that promised to protect it under the Budapest Memorandum. Completely ignored and overrun by Russia's greed and the invented fantasy, the fantasy of a threat to Russian-speaking peoples, stirred up by paramilitary infiltration from 2003. And many of those who were part of that paramilitary infiltration in not 2003, 2013, many of those who were part of that paramilitary infiltration in 2013 were then collected into the Wagner Brigade, which was formed in 2014, when Crimea was annexed, and the absurd plebiscite of people who have been filtered into the into Ukraine by the Russian state, so that they could vote. The same sort of vote took place in the Donetsk regions later on, with people voting at gunpoint, terrified unless they put the cross in the right place. This isn't a democratic assent. This is a plebiscite in the same way that Hitler and Mussolini engaged in plebiscites to ratify their brutality. It's not justified. And the staggering human toll, the thousands of dead, wounded, missing. It's a grim indictment of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression. It's nothing else. And war of attrition. It's not a war of defense. However it is presented by the people masquerading as Putin. What Russia hoped would be a swift military victory has instead become a quagmire of destruction, destabilizing not only the region, but Russia itself. And we need to remember that behind every statistic lies a human story. A son, a daughter, a family, torn apart by the decisions of a mad, power-hungry individual, supported by a mad, power-hungry group in the Kremlin, more concerned with keeping their position than with the lives of the people they were, I use the term very loosely, elected to serve.